Let's have an adult conversation. Over 25. Why? Because under 25, you're not legally eligible to serve in Congress. And so you're not really able to be a Republican representative of anybody else's interest but yourself. And despite presumably being legally able to vote, somebody else is supposed to be representing your interest. So, let's talk adult, over 25. There is a part of the brain, it's pretty close to the top of the brain, that is supposedly responsible for the neurostimulation of the clitoris. That when women become sexually excited, that specific area ends up having a specific energetic resonance. But when she's in various stages of orgasm, there's other parts of the brain that get activated. Now, I saw what was reputed to be a sort of radioencephalogram of what a woman's brain looks like when she's in various stages of orgasmic arousal. And unfortunately, it looked very similar to the displacement of the countries that are currently banned by the Trump administration. Now, before there was modification of the current ban, and all of the countries of consideration were specifically identified as Muslim countries, there was a specific way that they look. Of the notable significance was the placement of the country Chad, right? But even after the modifications to the ban, it still resembled basically the displacement of what would look like the areas of a woman's brain when she was engaged in some sort of orgasmic arousal. And my concern was, why did nobody ever bring this up? Not only that, but there was a short time after the implementation of this ban where allegedly women, Muslim women that were on airlines that were originating from the United States, were not allowed to use their own electronics. There were protests at the airports. Why would specifically Muslim women from countries that were allegedly banned not be allowed to use their own electronics while they were on a plane? Why didn't anybody get to the point? In the summer of 2017, I started having my clitoris stimulated remotely at very specific times. At first, it was supposed to feel pleasurable. But it's kind of embarrassing when somebody's literally remotely stimulating your clitoris. I found very shortly thereafter an old copy of the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure. It said that there was a specific section where a special order could be implemented by a judge. Didn't describe what the special order was, but the metric reference was the same as what was identified as the radio frequency at which clitoral stimulation occurs. It was specific to writs of habeas corpus. Now, how frequently writs of habeas corpus are acknowledged for adult women, and how frequently writs of habeas corpus are acknowledged for minor women is not something I know. At some point, the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure changed and they eliminated that specific code. But I understand that, the way that these courts work, especially after you follow the court filing system for a while and you see the way they flip securities from one case to another case. If they can use old cases to literally call a hit on my grandfather in another state, they can certainly use old cases with some special order connected to a special rule by a judge on a writ of habeas corpus to put that security flip onto my writ and then try to get me to please the judge. Now, I was never given a specific judge. I never got any further than the court clerk. I was told it was being worked up by staff, and I never got to see that work up. But what I did come to learn very shortly after I met another woman who had a minor child that they tried to serve with a writ of habeas corpus to take possession of the body of the daughter. And when I declined to let them have access to the body of the daughter, because they weren't going through with a legitimate service of process. And I understood that because it was coming from a constable's office, they only got 3 chances and 3 days to attempt service of notice before it ended up hitting the bond of the constable. I went down to the constable's office myself to explain what was going on. And it turned out, after I tracked it for 2 years following that, the constable absolutely knew it was an illegal attempt at service, right? And tried to use that to his advantage. And part of the way that that advantage was attempted was to take what was supposed to be a pleasurable stimulation of my clitoris and turn it into a very painful one, as well as use elements of my identity and my case processes and put it onto a 10-year-old girl at the time. See, I was her homeschool teacher, and I saw what it looked like when they worked that writ of habeas corpus for possession of the body of the daughter in time for a 10-year delivery on a school bond for technological upgrades to start stimulating the clitoris of my 10-year-old student. That's part one.